So we're about to do the reading of the first 50, what we do prior to every joining. And just taking a moment, just wanted to say this at the beginning of this recording. I've had the opportunity to speak with some people recently who've seen the recordings and have thought it was a private thing. It's not. So I just wanted to extend the invitation for anyone that would like to join. You're welcome to join. You can reach out to me. Maybe you can just leave a comment below, or you can reach out to me or Dave. I'm Tina with a Y, Tyler, on Facebook, and Dave Fair on Facebook. Yeah, we would love for you to join us. So just wanted to say that. We're going to take a moment more in my talking. Again, just allow Holy Spirit to do what it does. Fill the space. Send that invitation. And if anyone feels to start reading before I call on anyone, please feel free.
Nothing I see means anything. The reason this is so is that I see nothing, and nothing has no meaning. It is necessary that I recognize this, that I may learn to see. What I think I see now is taking the place of vision. I must let it go by realizing it has no meaning, so that vision may take its place. I have given what I see all the meaning it has for me. I have judged everything I look upon, and it is this and only this I see. This is not vision. It is merely an illusion of reality, because my judgments have been made quite apart from reality. I am willing to recognize the lack of validity in my judgments, because I want to see. My judgments have hurt me, and I do not want to see according to them. I do not understand anything I see. How could I understand what I see when I have judged it amiss? What I see is a projection of my own errors of thought. I do not understand what I see because it is not understandable. There is no sense in trying to understand it, but there is every reason to let it go and make room for what can be seen and understood and loved. I can exchange what I see now for this merely by being willing to do so. Is not this a better choice than the one I made before? These thoughts do not mean anything. The thoughts of which I am aware do not mean anything because I am trying to think without God. What I call my thoughts are not my real thoughts. My real thoughts are the thoughts I think with God. I am not aware of them because I have made my thoughts to take their place. I am willing to recognize that my thoughts do not mean anything and to let them go. I choose to have them be replaced by what they were intended to replace. My thoughts are meaningless, but all creation lies in the thoughts I think with God. Trying to mute myself. It's not working. It's like read more.
I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. It's not necessary, but boom. I'll do a couple. Mm, mm. I am never upset for the reason I think. I am never upset for the reason I think because I am constantly trying to justify my thoughts. I am constantly trying to make them true. I make all things my enemies so that my anger is justified and my attacks are warranted. I have not realized how much I have misused everything I see by assigning its role to it. I have done this to defend a thought system which has hurt me and which I no longer want. I am willing to let it go. I'm reading from the COA too. There was a couple of things that were different. I heard COA slight differences, and call me out just in case, because I could be skipping something. The ego could get control. Yeah, so call me out. Mm. I am upset because I see what is not there. I am upset because I see what is not there. Reality is never frightening. It is impossible that it could upset me. Reality brings only perfect peace. When I am upset, it is always because I have replaced reality with illusions which I made up. The illusions are upsetting because I have given them reality and thus regard reality as an illusion. Nothing in God's creation is affected in any way by this confusion of mine. I am always upset by nothing. I see only the past. As I look about, I condemn the world I look upon. I call this seeing. I hold the past against everyone and everything, making them my enemies. When I have forgiven myself and remembered who I am, I will bless everyone and everything I see. There will be no past, and therefore no enemies. And I will look with love on all that I had failed to see before. I'm going to do one more. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. I see only my own thoughts, and my mind is preoccupied with the past. What then can I see as it is? Let me remember that I look on the past to prevent the present from dawning on my mind. Let me understand that I am trying to use time against God. Let me learn to give the past away, realizing that in so doing, I am giving up nothing. Bernadette, you want to read a few? Hey, everybody, Bernadette's in the house.
Are you like going by as what doesn't really matter, or?
I'm going in order. Did I skip something?
No. I just didn't know what are the rules of engagement.
The rules,
Okay.
we just let Holy Spirit take over, but we don't.
Okay.
He put it in this arrangement, so we're gonna follow this arrangement.
All
I
right.
think there's a method
I
to
hear.
his madness.
All right. I'm reading from the FIP, if that's okay. I don't know.
Oh, it's perfect. Thank you.
I see nothing as it is now. If I see nothing as it is now, it can truly be said that I see nothing. I can see only what is now. The choice is not whether to see the past or the present. The choice is merely whether to see or not. What I have chosen to see has cost me vision. Now I would choose again that I may see. My thoughts do not mean anything. I have no private thoughts. There is only private thoughts of which I am aware. What can these thoughts mean? They do not exist, and so they mean nothing. Yet my mind is part of creation and part of its creator. Would I not rather join the thinking of the universe than to obscure all that I really, or obscure all that what is really mine with my pitiful and meaningless private thoughts? Oh God. I'm gonna do the last sentence again because
yeah,
it did not.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just take a breath, love.
Would I not rather join the thinking of the universe than to obscure all that is really mine with my pitiful and meaningless private thoughts? Oh, oof. Should I do one more? Is it
Absolutely.
threes? Is that how you do?
No, we do until we don't.
Okay. 53, lesson 53. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Since the thoughts of which I'm aware do not mean anything, the world that pictures them can have no meaning. What it's producing, this world is insane, and so is what it produces. Reality is not insane. And I have real thoughts as well as insane ones. I can therefore see the real world if I look to my real thoughts as my guide for seeing.
Should do a few more.
I am upset because I see a meaningless world. Insane thoughts are upsetting, that's for sure. They produce a world in which there is no order anywhere. Only chaos rules the world. That represents chaotic thinking. And chaos has no laws. I cannot live in peace in such a world. I am grateful that this world is not real and that I need not see it at all unless I choose to value it. And I do not choose to value what is totally insane and has no meaning.
Do one more.
A meaningless world engenders fear. The totally insane engenders fear because it is completely understandable and offers no grounds for trust. Nothing in madness is dependable. It holds out no safety and no hope. For such a world is not real. I have given it an illusion of reality and have suffered from my belief in it. Now I choose to withdraw this belief and place my trust in reality. In choosing this, I will escape all the effects of the world of fear because I am acknowledging that it does not exist.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you unmute yourself?
I did. Isn't that how you guys do it? I don't know. I thought maybe it would be not good if I leave my volume on. Is it okay if I leave it on?
I don't think it's a problem unless you get, unless a band comes through your your space. No, you're fine.
The only reason why, because I sometimes cough, and I know that's like screw up your audio or whoever's reading, right? So.
Well, I was actually talking to Anna. I didn't know if she could unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But yeah, whatever. It's all cool.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on now. Now
No,
I
you're good.
can.
I can hear you. No, I think I muted you, so I needed to ask you to unmute. I think I don't know, but anyway, let's see.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see if it keeps working. God did not create a meaningless world. How can a meaningless world exist if God did not create it? He is the source of all meaning, and everything that is real is in His mind. It is in my mind too, because He created it with me. Why should I continue to suffer from the effects of my own insane thoughts when the perfection of creation is my home? Let me remember the power of my decision and recognize where I really abide. My thoughts are images that I have made. Whatever I see reflects my thoughts. Whatever I see reflects my thoughts. It is my thoughts that tell me where I am and what I am. The fact that I see a world in which there is suffering and loss and death shows me that I am seeing only the representation of my insane thoughts, and I'm not allowing my real thoughts to cast their beneficent light on what I see. Yet God's way is sure. The images I have made cannot prevail against Him, because it is not my will that they do so. My will is His, and I will place no other gods before Him. I have no neutral thoughts. Neutral thoughts are impossible because all thoughts have power. They will either make a false world or lead me to the real one. But thoughts cannot be without effects. As the world I see arises from my thinking errors, so will the real world rise before my eyes as I let my errors be corrected. My thoughts cannot be neither true nor false. They must be one or the other. What I see shows me which they are.
Mhm.
I see no neutral things. I see no neutral things. What I see witnesses to what I think. If I did not think, I would not exist, because life is thought. Let me look on the world I see as the representation of my own state of mind. I know that my state of mind can change. And so I also know the world I see can change as well. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my seeing. If I have no private thoughts, I cannot see a private world. Even the mad idea of separation had to be shared before it could form the basis of the world I see. Yet that sharing was a sharing of nothing. I can also call upon my real thoughts, which share everything with everyone. As my thoughts of separation call to the separation thoughts of others, so my real thoughts awaken the real thoughts in them. In the world, my real thoughts show me. In the world, my real thoughts show me will dawn on their sight as well as mine. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. I am alone in nothing. I am alone in nothing. Everything I think or say or do teaches all the universe. A son of God cannot think or speak or act in vain. He cannot be alone in anything. It is therefore in my power to change every mind along with mine. For mine is the power of God. You'll have to mute me.
Oh, I thought you would want to read this next one.
Oh, no, this is yours.
Okay, I'll read it. Thank you. I am determined to see. I am determined to see. Recognizing the shared nature of my thoughts, I am determined to see. I would look upon the witnesses that show me the thinking of the world has been changed. I would behold the proof that what has been done through me has enabled love to replace fear, laughter to replace weeping, and abundance to replace loss. I would look upon the real world and let it teach me that my will and the will of God are one. I am determined to see things differently. What I see now are but signs of disease, disaster, and death. This cannot be what God created for his beloved son. The very fact that I see such things is proof that I do not understand God. Therefore, I also do not understand his son. What I see tells me that I do not know who I am. I am determined to see the witnesses to the truth in me rather than those which show me an illusion of myself. One more. What I see is a form of vengeance. The world I see is hardly the representation of loving thoughts. It is a picture of attack on everything and by everything. It is anything but a reflection of the love of God and the love of his son. It is my own attack thoughts which give rise to this picture. My loving thoughts will save me from this perception of the world and give me the peace God intended me to have. We'll do one more. I can escape from the world by giving up attack thoughts. Herein lies my salvation and nowhere else. Without attack thoughts, I could not see a world of attack. As forgiveness allows love to return to my awareness, I will see a world of peace and safety and joy. And it is this I choose to see in place of what I look on now. Bernadette, you want to read it? Hey, Megan. Megan. Hey, Megan.
I do not perceive my best interest. How could I recognize my own best interest when I do not know who I am? What I think are my best interest would merely blind me closer to the world of illusions. I am willing to follow the guide God has given me to find out what my own best interests are, recognizing that I cannot perceive them by myself. I do not know what anything is for. To me, the purpose of everything is to prove that my illusions about myself are real. It is for this purpose that I attempt to use everyone and everything. It is for this that I believe the world is for. Therefore, I do not recognize its real purpose. The purpose I have given the world has led to the frightening picture of it. Let me open my mind, please. To the world of real purpose by withdrawing the one I have given it and learning the truth about it. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. How can I know who I am when I see myself as under constant attack, pain, illness, loss, age, and death seems to threaten me? All my hopes and wishes and plans appear to be the mercy of the world I cannot control. Yet perfect security and complete fulfillment are my inheritance. I have tried to give my inheritance away in exchange for the world I see, but God has kept my inheritance safe for me. My own real thoughts will teach me what it is. One more. Oh, above else, I want to see. Above else, I want to see. Recognizing that what I see reflects what I think I am. I realize the vision is my greatest need. The world I see attests to the fearful nature of the self-image I have made. If I would remember who I am, it is essential that I let this image of myself go. As it is replaced by truth, vision will surely be given me. And with this vision, I will look upon the world and on myself with a charity and love. Thank you.
Do one more.
Do the next one.
I concur. I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Above else, I want to see differently. The world I see holds my fearful self-image in place and guarantees its continuance. While I see the world as I see it now, truth cannot enter my awareness. I would let the door behind the world be open for me, that I may look past to the world that reflects the love of God. God is in everything I see. Behind every image I have made, the truth remains unchanged. Behind every veil I have drawn across the face of love, it is the light remains undimmed. Beyond all my insane wishes is my will united with the will of my Father. God is still everywhere, in everything, in forever. And we who are part of Him will look past all appearances and recognize the truth beyond them all.
Good. Now read that one again. But this time, let go of the guilt. Let go of the story. Close your eyes for a second. Take a few deep breaths. I'm going to give you an imaginary scenario. Imagine a naughty boy at school goes into the chemistry room and he loves chemistry. It's his favorite thing. But he's not supposed to be in there without the teacher's supervision. But he can't help himself. He just has to go in there and play with things because he loves the results of mixing one thing with another. And he makes a big explosion. And he wrecks the chemistry room. And he gets in so much trouble, like he does so much damage, that none of the other children can do any chemistry. They have to fix the room. And he starts to feel really, really bad for the other children and for everything. He starts to feel guilty and he starts to lose his interest in chemistry because of it. Okay? But the other children, they see how sad he feels, and the teacher sees how sad he feels at what he's done. And they gather around him and they tell him, don't be sad, because in your ignorance, you've done something incredible. And it's no loss to any of us to suffer the loss of the chemistry room, because you invented something that is going to help our lives without limit. Now, in just the same way, there's a guilt inherent in the mind that believes that it has caused the suffering of humanity and caused the split from reality. But it's not true. In truth, something has occurred, albeit illusory, that has enabled the expression of love to be felt and heard and extended in a place that was designed to deny it. It's the most incredible thing in the universe, and you're a part of that. But until you accept that you're a part of that, you cannot not experience this from the guilt of thinking that you've done something wrong. Nothing wrong ever occurred. But when you go through the lessons in the course, it brings up your guilt so that you can heal from it. It brings up your sadness so that you can heal from it. It brings up all of that. It's a journey into fear. But in reality, everybody is dancing around, clapping their hands with joy at your incredible efforts. It's amazing. It's incredible. But it's you now that has to come out of the coma, out of the dream, out of the illusion of guilt and denial to realize the truth of what's actually occurring here. You're literally living in the resurrection, Bernadette. You couldn't screw this up if you wanted to. You couldn't get it wrong if you wanted to. But the ability for you to now be able to play your part within it to help speed up the collapse of that residual potential and time that's contained in your own timeline. That's why we do the course. That's why we have the course. We don't have to do anything. We could just sit on a bench by the park and feed the pigeons until the end of time. 130 billion years. One lifetime, one world, one universe after the next, after the next, after the next. But that's kind of boring, you know, like I look out at the world and I'm like, all right, I've done everything here. There's nothing else I want. It all ends the same way. What's the point? Let's be about our Father's business and collapse all this time in our own association, you know, so we can have an experience. And then from that experience, come back, perhaps, and represent the truth in a place designed to deny it, to find ourselves as the living call of God. Everyone who embarks upon this journey automatically becomes part of God's voice, automatically becomes part of that call to awaken. You may not even be aware of it. It may take you an incredible amount of effort and determination and doing those lessons and prayer and meditation to actually get to a point where a little light bulb goes on in your mind and you're like, oh my God, I'm part of God in this world. In this world, I'm not a Bernadette or a Anna or a Dave. I'm part of God disguised as a Bernadette, you know. But the place where that is an idea in your mind and the place where the light bulb comes on, where that actually meets in you, is a whole other thing, where we collapse time to bring that to the here and the now. You may get glimpses of it and you may have holy instants and you may have other experiences and whatever, but until it becomes your working platform, until it becomes your regular state of mind or state of being, there's going to be this kind of up and down with it, you know, like a kind of a, like today I'm feeling really good and yesterday I was shit and tomorrow, oh my God, how do I face the day? There's all these kinds of moments. And, you know, you get to a point where you get out of bed in the morning and it's just your automatic recognition that today is going to be a day where you want to find your fear. Today is a day where I'm consciously looking for my limitations. I want to find them so I can heal from them, because anything else is just delay. It doesn't mean that you don't do things and quit your job and whatever. All doesn't mean any of that stuff. But it just means you become more conscious, more focused, more self-aware of what's actually going on in your own thinking, in the relationships that are presented with you throughout the day, and in the situations when you're finding yourself in perhaps moments of mind wandering. You know, and Jesus says in the Course, you're far too tolerant of mind wandering. It's like sometimes I remember I used to drive my car to work or something and somebody would cut in front of me and I'd be like, God damn, you know, and I have this whole moment go on there. And my mind would dwell on that moment for like the rest of the drive into work, you know, like 20 minutes or whatever. I'd be still thinking about people cutting me off. And it's like, why? You know, let's be here and now. That happened. It's done. Let's be here and now. But the place where you read these lessons is in the here and now, is in the acceptance of my guiltlessness, is in the acceptance of my perfection. Sure, I've still got the work to do. Sure, I've still got to uncover my guilt. Sure, I've still got all this other stuff, which is why I have 365 lessons. But let me accept, to whatever degree I can, my perfection and sinlessness as God created me, because that's actually the truth of me, regardless of my beliefs to the contrary. Most people in the world would say, well, that's a bit arrogant. Nobody's perfect here. True, nobody is perfect here. But I'm not referring to myself as here. I'm no longer referencing myself as a body in time and space, but rather as mind experiencing itself seemingly separate from itself in a dream of denial, which I'm now awakening from. You know? So it's like, all right, I've got a choice. I can read this from a place of like ignorance, as if I don't know the truth, or I can read this from a place of perfection and sinlessness, which I also may not have a comprehension of in my mind, but which one do I want? Right? I have to make a choice. I'm not guilty. I'm a child of God, and all the mistakes I make along the way to self-realization and whatever, they're not really mistakes. They're opportunities to learn better. They're opportunities to remember better. You know, so it makes no sense really when you see it that way to beat yourself up for those things. It's like, okay, I fucked that up. Now I'll keep going. And you learn to laugh at yourself. You learn to take yourself less seriously and more lightly, and, you know, until finally you realize there's no such thing as a mistake. There's no such thing as an error. Nothing ever went wrong. Now, read from that place. Feel it in your heart. Feel a connection. Heart is the passion. Mind is the decision maker. Make the choice with the passion of the heart. Connect the two things. If it's just in the head, it's just going to be lip service. If it's just in the heart, you're going to be kind of like absent-minded and not really know what the hell, right? Put the two things together. Then read it again.
God is in everything I see.
Right.
Behind every image I have made, the truth remains unchanged. Behind every veil I have drawn across the face of love, the light remains undimmed. Beyond all my insane wishes is my will, united with the will of my Father. God is still everywhere and in everything forever and ever and ever. And we who are part of Him will yet look all past appearances and recognize the truth behind them all.
Good. There's a warmth there. There's a nice warmth and a feeling. Just stay there in that place. That warmth will actually open you up to more healing, to more opportunity. The more you become aware of that within yourself, the more you become aware of that presence, that sense, the greater the contrast will appear to be in your mind when you're not finding yourself there, and the more inescapable it will be for you to try and deny the darkness in you. Okay? Now, in reality, there's no such thing as darkness in you, but we're not talking about reality. We're talking about an illusion, a dream, a false belief, which we are now exposing to the light. But first we got to find it. We got to find where it lives in us, in our thought system, bit by bit, or maybe all at once if you have enough courage, but bit by bit generally. It's a slowly evolving training program, and one day at a time. It's like St. John, I died daily. Every day, let me look for something. Let me be aware and open to face my fears today. Megan, how's the trip? You didn't
Let's
enjoy
not
that,
mention
huh?
the word trip, okay? We're just gonna stay out of that one, okay?
That's a really cool thing, right? So before I found the course, about 3 or 4 months before I found the course, I was taking magic mushrooms every day for about 2 years. Every single day, 2 or 3 times a day, right? I wasn't even microdosing. I was just like going full on like this. Right? They used to grow in the farmer's field next door to me, and I would take my dog for a walk every morning, and we'd pick all the mushrooms out of the cow pats, and I would boil them up in my tea, and I'd make enough tea for about 3 or 4 cups to get me through the day. And that's how I managed life. I also had some cannabis growing and other stuff like that, but generally that's how I managed life. And I had I had a couple of, hey, Bibiana, I had a couple of very, very bad trips. Okay, so one day I found some blue mushrooms, and I lived not far from Nimbin. Now, I don't know if you know Nimbin. Nimbin in Australia is the cannabis capital of the Southern Hemisphere. Everybody smokes weed. Everybody takes mushrooms and does whatever. Like, it's just, and it's all open. Everything in the streets, all the shops are painted with cannabis things and whatever. But everybody there, I had lots of friends that lived in the communities in the hills around there and hippies and whatever, but they always used to talk very advisedly about blue meanies, which are the little tiny blue ones that grow in darker places, right? So one day I'm under this bridge on my friend's property, and there's a cow pat where a cow had been under the bridge, and there's 2 or 3 of these little tiny blue things. So I picked them and I put them in my pocket. They were like a velvety blue color. And I took them, and I had the worst trip ever. There were demons. There was like stuff. I was hallucinating. Like, it was the worst. And the only way out of that trip, right, was the Jehovah's Witnesses. I lived out in the country, like a long way from people. The Jehovah's Witnesses had been by a few months earlier and left me a little bunch of reading materials and whatever. And there was a card. There was a Archangel Michael card, and it had a prayer on the back. Okay. And I was in such a distraught state. I was hiding under my bed, and the doona was hanging down. The quilt was hanging down, and I'm lifting it up to see if the devils were still flying around in my room. And the cupboard where the card was on the other side of the room. And I was freaking out. I thought I was doomed, and I knew in my mind all I had to do was get across the room, open the cupboard, grab all that stuff they'd left me, because I never threw anything away in those days, and read the prayer on that card. And I waited for one of the devils to go, and I watched it go that way. And I raced across the room, which was only a small room, grabbed the card, and I dived back under the bed, and I'm reading again and again and again this prayer on the back of this little card. Archangel Michael, save me, my dark hour, blah, 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 whatever it said, I can't remember. And all of a sudden, after about 10 times I'd repeated this prayer, there was this flash of light in the room, and the Archangel Michael appeared, like a huge angel with wings and robes and sword and everything, and grabbed this demon that was flying around in my room, a red demon with wings and everything, and put it in an iron cage, right, and covered it with a crimson cloth. And then it threw the cage off into eternity, off into the nothing, just into forever. And I saw it go into the distance until it disappeared. And then like that, the trip ended instantly. Right now, I've had many trips. I've never had one just end like that. Right. And then the funny thing was, when it ended, I was looking, and there was Archangel Michael looking directly at me. And he just said one word. He said, baptism. like that. And then the whole trip ended, right? The whole trip ended. Now, when I used to go, and this is how everything is a part of your journey, right? So when I used to go to visit my parents, I would go over the back road, over the mountains to over the state border to the next state, Queensland, and visit them. On the way, there was a little place. It was just a person's house, and they had a sign out the front that said Frontline Ministries, and that had a little thing like healings and baptisms and whatever on the sign, you know, and all these different things that the couple did there. And I knew in my heart, I'd driven past many times, I knew in my heart I had to go there, right? So I got in my car like a few days later. I let everything chill, took no more drugs, and I got in my car a few days later, and I went up there and I met the minister's name, and his name was John, and his wife's name was Agnes or something like that anyway, and they had a river, and I sat with them for about an hour, and we talked about what had happened, and they were concerned because of the drugs. They thought the devil had entered into me, and they wanted to do an exorcism, and they wanted to do all this kind of stuff, you know. And I'm like, no, I was just told baptism. I was told by the angel baptism. And we went the very next day, we went down. They had a little small like river, creek thing running through their property. And I went and got baptized. And nothing really happened in the baptism that I recognized until much, much later in life, right? Much, much further down the road. I recognized that there was a purity or a, I can't explain it. It was like, it was as if stuff that I would have thought would have been in my life later was just kind of washed away, right? It was really beautiful. But on the day in particular, nothing really happened. It was just like, I felt like a fish out of water. I didn't know what was going on, and I just did what they told me to do and went under the water and come back up, and it was all cool. But that acid trip, right, that mushroom trip, it was a very, very important part of my evolution, I guess, or journey, right? It's not essential, obviously. Whatever your path is your path. But when you told me, hey, I'm having a bad trip on mushrooms or whatever, and everything's going shit, I knew exactly where you were at in your mind, right? And you're thinking, oh, I'm freaking out, help, help, help. And I'm thinking, awesome, this is really good. You know, like, yay, I'm rooting for you. You know, that was what I was thinking. But I mean, and look, here you are.
Well, yeah.
Everything's trying to get your attention. It doesn't matter. You know?
It was so odd. Like, I don't have words to articulate this experience. It's a different way of perceiving. It was a full being experience.
Right.
It was horrifying. It was not God. It was everything I didn't want to be. It was in my face. It was like brutal. And like, I still have panic attacks. Like, I wake up, there's this thing that happens. Last time this happened, and I ended up in psych, if you recall. That's the great shamans of the West. Anyway, so yeah. There's this horrendously deep pain in my heart, and there's like no end to it. And like, it's like being impaled way down to the bottom of your bottomless soul, okay? Because and all you can do is like shatter and scream through it. I'd rather have a baby sideways, like.
Yeah.
But I don't, because I still felt the need to go back and look at that. I took one mushroom like 2 days later. It was still just as horrifying, just not nearly as loud. It's like, okay, and
one mushroom gave you another trip. That's
well, I could just it works. I had experience before substance, so substance kind of works like amplifier.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it was like I mean, I saw these beautiful lights. There's this beautiful golden light, and it was like my forehead was super warm, and it was like in my eye, but kind of not, and kind of like it was just there. I don't know how to explain it, but there was this terror and this this huge loud lie that I was in trouble with God, and I've experienced differently directly, and I knew it was a lie, but I just couldn't shake it.
Okay, so there's a couple of things, right? So when your mind starts to wake up, when you start to realize that there is a consciously participative journey of reclaiming your own inner light, or reclaiming your power, however you want to put that, taking responsibility for your mind, that's probably the better way to do it. When you start to realize that, and you start to make experiments or efforts at training your mind through meditation, through prayer, anything like that, your ego automatically is going to sense that, and sense a kind of a breaking away from your allegiance with it, because it can't go in that direction. Its sole purpose is to have the physical nature of your association with the world to be valid to you, right? And as soon as you start to deny it, as soon as you start to raise it to question, the ego starts to kick up a stink, right? It would rather have you kill yourself and have to come back around and manifest another vessel and start again than have you find the truth. Because once you find the truth, you have no room in your heart and in your soul for it. Okay? So what happens is this. You're in this transition place. You're in a place, Jesus calls it, between the worlds. Okay? Where you've seen the ridiculousness of the world that you're coming from, and you have this promise of a world that you're headed towards, and you find yourself somewhere vacillating back and forth between the two worlds, trying to get to the one while leaving the other one behind. But the other one, of course, has all these temptations. What about my kids? What about my friends and family? What about? And that stuff will never end, right? So little by little, you have to make consciously chosen decisions about God, about love, right? One of the hardest of those decisions is going to be commending your children to God. It's like, whatever happens to me, I have to trust that God has a plan for my kids as well as me.
And that was what was hard. Because
right,
there
exactly.
was
I can't hover around, you know, waiting to see if my kids turn out okay and trying to guide them. And that's hard for a parent to let go of that kind of frame of mind, because it's like, are they old enough and whatever to try, you know? But one of the things that's, if you ever seen Slumdog Millionaire, you know, about the kids in India, and it's like, it's a horrific movie on one scale, but on the other, you see those little kids, they grow up from an age of 2 and 3 years old in the streets, they're surviving, they're growing up, they're doing their thing, and they're okay. They've got each other, they're happy, and the whole thing, and it all works out, right? My wife, Rosanna, used to tell me the story of when she was a little girl of about 5 or 6, maybe even younger. Her father passed, and her mother immigrated to Australia with the new husband, leaving behind all 5 kids, right? With an alcoholic uncle who, I won't go into that side of things too much, I'm sure you can imagine, but she used to have to raise her brothers. 2 of the brothers were older and all that stuff. And she would talk about as a child of like 5, right? She would be in the backyard trying to collect edible leaves to mix with some rice to cook them up something to eat. You know, it's a harsh world. It's tough upbringing when children of that age are left to fend for themselves and have to survive in the street. But they do it because there is a power within them. Just the same as a baby bird that jumps from a nest as a tiny little fledgling bird can get through its life and produce its own offspring, etc., etc., etc. So all the worries that we have about our kids, they're superficial. They're added onto a false sense of self to try and verify our own justification of our fears. You know, well, what if I let these fears go? Who's going to look after my kids? No, just let the fears go.
Honestly, and you might find this interesting considering the course material, but the biggest fear, because you're mentioning kids, so it really felt like there was this battle for my soul. Okay, try not to laugh at me. This is just how it came out. It felt like there was this battle.
We're going to try and laugh at you.
It felt like there was this battle for my soul, and it felt like demons were trying to take over my damn mind. And it felt like as I was understood, would not be allowed to come back, and there would be this like demon mind body stuck here with my kids. Like,
right, hello, where have you been? That is the story. That is what's happening. That is the story. What do you think temptation is? Megan, that's what's happening. You're in a story, you're in a dream of choosing between two realities. One that is represented by symbols called demons and whatever, which is fear, and the other one which is represented by symbols of angels and love and healing and all forgiveness, called love. Right? That's the battle going on, but it's only going on in your own mind because love is actually the only reality. You can give fear reality if you want, and then you'll get the result of it, which will be what you've been going through. But we're learning to choose not for fear. We're learning to choose for love now, in the place where fear seems to be. We're not trying to push fear down anymore and pretend it's not there. We're not trying to deal with it with drugs or alcohol. We're just saying, all right, there is fear in me. We're accepting it. I've taken on board a false premise somewhere, right? I keep catching a glimpse of it here and there. And I had a beautiful discussion with Stephanie and Lloyd this morning exactly about this, where the perspective that you have, right? So everybody's at their own stage of awakening and everyone's doing their own thing, whatever. But the perspective that you have and that you get to is that the only remaining power you have in this world is the power of choice. Okay. Now, your choice, this is something that you kind of have to have your own aha moment with for yourself. Your choice has to be for God unconditionally, for God, whatever that looks like. Okay. And then for you to remember that you made that choice in the place where you seem to be tempted to make another choice down the track or whatever. It's like, no, I've chosen for God. All right. Now, God is the unknown factor. Until you experience direct union with God, it's the unknown factor. So you have these moments where I seem to be fearful. It's like, all right, I'm fearful. Let me acknowledge and accept that, but without reacting to it, without buying into it, without giving it a value. You've already given it a value or it wouldn't be there, right? But without playing out this cause and effect back and forth, attack, defense, because you're only attacking yourself. Just be the observer of it. Oh, fear, right? It's as if you're stepping back, watching something going on in your own mind that's unnatural or uncreative. And then when you find a place in your heart and mind together where that fear that you've discovered no longer has the ability to affect you, give it to the Holy Spirit. Right here, take this. Right? And I have the story. I always tell this little story about children on a ghost train. You know what a ghost train is at the sideshow? And you get on the little carriage and you sit there and you go through the doors open and they have skeletons.
Oh, the haunted tunnel, yeah.
Haunted house.
Yeah.
The ghost train, right?
Yeah.
So when you're a little kid, right? This is looking at your fears. When you're a little kid, you go through like this, right? And you're like, oh my God, I can't watch. I can't look because it's dark and you're afraid of the dark. And then when you realize all your friends are going through and they're laughing and they're having a great time, you sort of do this one. You go, you know, and you let yourself look at it a little bit, you know, and then after a while you realize how ridiculous you're being. You keep coming out the other end and you're fine. So it's like the next time you go through, you're like, oh, and you see a rubber skeleton, you see like a sheet hanging down with eyes painted on it and stuff, and you know it's just all nothing. But you don't know that the first time, right? Now, when you're willing to look at your fears without doing this, they have no power over you. Okay? It's the same thing because everything is nothing more than an idea that you hold about it in your own mind. That's it. You're literally afraid of your own thoughts about things, not the things themselves. Right? It's unreasonable, for example, to have a thought about a terror of nuclear war. What's the point? For a start, right? You got to get to the bottom. You got to get to the bottom of it. What's the point of being afraid of nuclear war or a train crash or anything? Because at some point, unknowns to you, you're going to be out of this body anyway. How do you know how that's going to happen? How do you know what your final breath is going to look like? You don't. But the fear of how your final breath may look is going to limit you from enjoying the breath you're having now. It's like, holy cow, let me be still and know my Father. Let me be still and know my creative source now, rather than sitting here in terror doing this in case somebody pushes a button and there's a bomb. It's like, what the fuck? There's no guarantees here. There's no certain outcomes other than love. But that's your choice. You have to make it. Everything else makes no sense at all. Fear is nonsensical. You can look at it from every angle you want, and you're never going to come up with a valid reason for maintaining a perspective on it in your own thinking. Never. Because at the end of the day, this isn't you. This isn't me. This is nothing to do with anything. It's just a vehicle. What do I care what happens to it, really? It's all part of an incredible experience that serves the greater good. Now, if I truly believe that, if I truly took that on board, I'd be out there skiing the slopes. I'd be out there jumping off things and woohoo and having a great time and just doing whatever without the limitation of the fears that people have that say, oh, I better not do that because I might hurt myself. You know, it's like, what the hell? If you could see how incredible, this experience of being human is, for a start, right? Of even thinking you're human. I mean, take a leaf, a simple leaf, or a, you know, like whatever this thing is. It's a hard drive. It's like, and I think about this and it's like, how is this even possible? What is this thing? I take it for granted. I buy it in the shop with my money and I take it home and my pictures and things go on there. And then I forget about it. But if I break it down in my thinking, it's like, this is reality. This is a version of reality that I'm able to touch and experience as a mind experiencing something. The air I'm breathing. Wow, what is that? Imagine if you were to wake up on Mars tomorrow and you could breathe the air. You'd be like, wow. You might be scared at first. You might be like freaking out. But eventually you'd be like, frick, I'm on Mars. How did I get here? Wow, look at this place. You know?
I remember drinking mushroom yesterday. I'm just kidding.
Right, there'd be a sense of wonder. There'd be a sense of incredible wonder about it all. You know, every single little thing. It's like this cable. How does the thing go from through the cable and then my pictures come out the other end? It's like, what the hell? How does that even happen? Why do I not live in the joy like the little boy in the science room, in the chemistry room, the joy of just going, wow, this is incredible. Look, that's why babies, they lay in their cots and they look at their hands and they play with their fingers and toes and they're like, you can tell in their head, they're like, wow, I got a body. This is incredible. I can't say any words yet, but I'll get there. But look at this. Look what I can do with my fingers. Woohoo! And they're just living in this total moment of joy and wonder. And then when we get older, it's like, you need to get a cable. And then you just miss the whole, you know, the whole moment of it. It's like, if this is the only moment there is, the here and the now, I don't even know what this is called. Truly. I'm told it's called a cable, and I've taken that on board from my own sense of things. But look, it looks like wobbly spaghetti, and I can twist it and I can turn it, and the bits don't join up at the end. And like, if you gave this to a toddler, a 2-year-old, they'd be like trying to make it and do thinking, you know, they wouldn't know what. They would have no idea about it. But as soon as we take on board an idea, give it a meaning and everything, it becomes, boom, into the rubbish bin of contempt. You know, that's what we do with our fears. We build up a sense of contempt for everything, our children, our family, our friends, and we call it love. We try to control them and manipulate them and make sure that things go the way that we think things should go for them. That's not love. That's murder. You know? Oh, I don't like how you're talking to me now. I'm building boundaries. These are my boundaries. What the fuck is a boundary? Everything is the one thing. Right? Everything is the one thing. It's either love or a lesson in love. Why would you build a boundary against a lesson in love if you actually truly believed it was a lesson? You wouldn't. Oh, this person's toxic, and that person's a gas lamper, and this person's a bloody blah, 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 blah. And everybody gets a name. Everybody gets a description. It's like, when will I just let it be enough that this is my brother in Christ, and he's on a learning journey with me, and we're in the same room together, going through this shit together, because there's something that each of us has that we're withholding from the other one, which enables us to come out of this situation perfectly peaceful and loving. And that thing is called forgiveness. You know, let forgiveness be enough, Megan. Let forgiveness be enough. It's really all you have. You just haven't realized it yet. You've really got to, like, we were reading that, what was it? It wasn't Darjon. Last week we were talking about Adidar Samaranch, you know, one of his teachings that I'd come across. And I remember many years ago, I read his book. It's like, it's thicker than the Course. It's like this. It's called The Knee of Listening, right? By Darjon or Bright John. He's called himself like 10 different things in the time of his whole presentation of himself. I think in the end he was just Dar or something, or D or whatever. But he wrote this book called The Knee of Listening, and we had it in the library, and I didn't get through the whole thing, but you had to kind of go with him on his own internal ride. It wasn't spelled out like the Course where you could just read it and go, aha. You had to kind of like go around all the corners and nooks and crannies to come back to that aha moment that he was trying to explain, right? So in one of his teachings that I posted up the other week, he was saying how superficial spiritual students are in their comprehension of what it is they're trying to do. Right? Now, I know this from sitting with my teacher, Ted. I know this from other guys sitting with me, from you guys, whatever. It's like, I can tell you there is no world. And you're going to sit there and try to work out what I mean by that. Right? You're going to sit there and go, oh yeah, there is no world. It says that in the Course too. The Hindus tell us that the world, you'll have all these things for why there is no world in your head, but you won't actually hear me say it. Right? If I tell you there is no world, and now you seem to find yourself in a world, and you really hear that, it's going to bring you into this pointy wedge, this paradox in your mind where you go, what do you mean there is no world? There is too a world, because I seem to be in it, and there's going to bring up this intense conflict if you truly hear it, right? Now, the fact that you don't truly hear it is because you're not really ready for that conflict yet. Jesus says you're learning to become revelation ready, right? That's a process. You have to go through the process. It's one day at a time, one step at a time, one lesson at a time, one encounter, relationship, whatever at a time. And each little thing you go through prepares you for that little light bulb to go on in the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And these little holy moments where the light bulbs go on, they kind of accumulate all the time going, God's a fact, God's a fact, God's a fact, somewhere in the back of your consciousness, until finally you go, holy shit, God's a fact. Right? All these lessons that you're connecting with and the experience that's waiting to happen in your own mind, bam, they hit together. All of a sudden, I tell you, there is no world. And you're like, yep. And that's the matter of fact of it. You know? Until then, everything is belief. Right? In the framework of the belief, you have the apparent luxury. I'll call it a luxury because I didn't have it. I sometimes wish I did have the luxury. But you have the apparent luxury of choice, where you can choose to believe there is no world or there isn't no world. I've told people there is no world and they think I'm stark raving mad. And I've told other people like Lloyd this morning, you know, like if I was to tell Lloyd there is no world, he'd be like, yeah, brother, I know, I've been there. You know, he's done it. He's stepped outside of time and space and the whole thing. And we both know we're on the same page with that, right? Other people just like their eyeballs, they roll and, you know, like, ooh, get away, you know, like this. But it's like that superficial nature of hearing. When Jesus says you have ears but don't hear, that superficial nature of hearing is what you're up against, right? If I said to you, the next time you go for a drive downtown with your kids, you're going to be hit by a semi-trailer and you're going to lose both your kids, right? A horrific scenario in your mind, right? Something that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. But if I told you something like that, the next time you were driving with your kids, you would be fully alert for semi-trailers. You'd be like, holy shit, somebody just, you know, and the kids, and your mind wouldn't be wandering off to other things. You wouldn't be paying half an attention to the road. You'd be totally focused on the road, right? But because salvation seems to take time, you think there's time between now and the time when you actually remember your true self. It's not so. There is no time. It's either going to be now, or the next now, which is now, right? But what you're up against, and you can probably see it in your own mind now, is the idea of the analysis of what you think now is, right? You're still listening to me like I'm telling you something that's going to happen in the next now. It's not. It's going to happen now. It can only happen now. You're literally missing your own illumination every moment. Now, between me telling you that and you actually hearing it is where the illumination happens, is where the moment of the awakening of your mind in its totality occurs. Right? Enlightenment will occur for you in the moment where you don't have your next thought. But that's why we have mind training. Okay? It's an improbable situation. You're going to require a miracle. Improbable, impossible, and everything else. It's going to take a miracle. Because one, I know you can't hear what the hell I'm saying. I know you can't hear it. I'm just going to keep saying it, keep saying it, keep saying it, keep saying it, repeating the same lesson in 1,000 different ways that you're perfect. You're perfect. You're perfect. And your mind is going to, it cannot not, right? Because mind is always active. Mind is always teaching and learning. Your mind is always going to try and reference what perfection is or isn't. Right? Now, that's the mind that we're learning not to listen to. There's no answers in your conceptual mind, Megan. There's nothing there. Only a torturous game that you play with yourself. Demons and angels and things like that. I feel like demons are trying to take over my soul, right? Who told you that? A voice in your head. A voice in your head made up a thought that you feel like demons are going to take over your soul, and you believe in it, and you tell it to me.
Sorry, my kid.
All right? You believe in that thought, and you tell it to me as if it's something that you actually think is affecting you now. It's not. You're dragging up a story from the past to present to me now as if it was some kind of valid way to communicate, and it isn't. Okay? Now, the mind training in the course is, let's just let all that go. Let's stop telling our stories, even our spiritual ones. Let's stop telling all our things. And we'll have this moment where there's a gap, where we refuse to join in storytelling, where we refuse to join in the conceptual associations that are going on in our head. And we leave that gap empty and allow the spirit to flow in there, where we can join in love without trying to decide what that ought to look like. You ready? There. Now, stay there. Stay there. You just won that war that's raging in your head. Got it? And you want it because you refuse to engage with it. We're going to leave the gap open and we're going to enjoy here and now where there's nothing but love. Right. Look at that smile. Now, the ego is going to attempt to drag you back into some thinking. But Megan, what about this thought about other stuff? And you're going to be like, oh, yeah, better think about that. And then you'll get caught. As soon as you engage with it, you're going to get caught up in it again, around and around and around. You'll be back in the next Zoom meeting going, you know what happened last week? I had this crazy thought about blah, 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 blah. And you'll have spent the whole week missing here. It's that simple. Right? In your mind, you're looking there and you're going, surely it can't be just as simple as that. Well, actually, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because your Father's will for you is perfect happiness. God's will for you is perfect happiness. Now, don't try to define what that perfect happiness ought to look like, and just allow it to be in the moment as it is and be grateful. It's like, wow, for this moment. Thank you for this moment. The kids are screaming, the kettle's boiling, there's someone banging on the door and all this shit's going on. It's like, that's nothing but an externalization of whatever's going on in my mind, but I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to buy into it. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit in the peace of God and allow something else to occur in my mind that is not of my own making. You can call that a miracle or a divine intervention, whatever. I remember years and years ago, right? So I'm going back into storytelling just for these purposes. But years and years ago, I went and did some study with the Brahma Kumari, who had a little temple just down the road from where I was living. And they did a form of meditation. It was an open-eyed meditation around a candle with a flame. And there was probably a dozen people in the room at sometimes, and sometimes maybe a little more or less. But in the main sort of auditorium room or the meditation room in the house, it was a big house. There was all the usual things that you would find in a meditation room, little affirmation things around the walls and whatever was particular to their thing. And then there was the kitchen off to the side, and there was kids playing out in the back room that belonged to people, whatever. And because it was an open-eyed meditation, you would have to focus on the flame, but in the peripheral, you would always see this lady, I don't know who she was, but you'd always see this lady with teacups and things taking drinks out for people that weren't doing the meditation. And it would be annoying, right? She would be distracting. The teacups would chink on the tray and rattle together and clang together. And then there would be kids, you know what kids are like, and everything. And in my mind, because in those days I had no other clue about meditation, I was thinking, surely we should be doing this in a rainforest or somewhere quiet, you know, like thing. There was all this racket going on. And it took me a little moment to realize that everyone else in the room wasn't the least bit concerned, because they were focused on their meditation. They weren't noticing what I was noticing, right? That's the same thing that goes on in your mind. Okay? The same thing that goes on in your mind when you're focused on God, when you're focused on this moment. Your mind opens and you have an internal shift, right? But you can't do that while you're trying to focus on this moment and still paying attention to the other stuff that seems to be going on in there, those distracting thoughts. There's a whole battle of good and evil going on. Yeah, but there's only that if you engage with it, right? That's the other part of your mind that you've given the purpose of keeping you distracted, right? It's like you wrote an incredible story. You wrote a play, you know, Romeo and Juliet or something, and you got all your friends together and you said, let's get up on the stage. We'll play this out. We'll do this whole thing, and you read the parts and I'll read the parts. And all of a sudden you realize, hang on, we've been doing this for so long. somebody kills somebody, somebody wins and somebody loses. Romeo and Juliet both die in the end, and it's just this ridiculous thing. And you make a decision, I don't want to do that anymore, so you just walk off the stage. All right? Imagine the scene. Mid Act 3, Romeo and Juliet, the balcony there, and then you just walk off, right? You are like the sun, the moon, whatever it is she blabs on about, or he blabs on, you know, rah, rah, whatever, and you're not there. There's no Juliet. You're like, no, I'm done with this. It's like the whole thing falls to pieces. The whole script, the whole story, just like it's a chink in the armor. Everybody has to ad lib, but they realize that even the ending is compromised because there's no Juliet. What's Romeo going to do? Play both parts himself? It's hardly ridiculous, you know, like it's a self-love overkill. So you've walked off the stage. Now, that's what you got to do in your own mind. That's what you're learning to do in your own mind, is to walk off the stage. It's like, I'm not going to listen to those thoughts. I refuse to listen to those thoughts. I don't know what else to listen to because there doesn't seem to be another voice in my mind, but I'm just not going to listen to that. The for or the against, the yin or the yang, the good or the bad. I don't care about any of it. All of that blah, blah, blah that goes on 24/7 in my head. I'm going to train myself to be still in the middle of all of that seeming battle of chaos of crap. I'm going to train myself to be still, recognize that I've given it all the meaning it has to me, and let that meaning go. Now what? Now nothing.
Thank you.
Are you off?
Yes.
Okay. Sleep well. And you're off. Ian?
Oh, I was just waving at Bernadette. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. All right, all good. So next, before we go, Bernadette, next, oh, she's gone.
I'll tell her. What are you going to tell
So
her?
next Sunday, we're joining up with another Zoom group. You can do a little thing about it, okay? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So just try to realize, Megan, I mean, you've got a lot going on. When I did this, I had the support of about 50 brothers, 60 brothers around me who were always there that I could go and talk to about stuff, right? So you're doing this with me and with whoever else you got online and in your own thing with the book, perhaps, and whatever you're doing. But remember, it's mind training that is the most important thing for you, right? Mind training. You have to be consciously training yourself every day, because in the moment where you're not, your ego is looking for a way to get back in, right? Your ego is not your friend. It does not have your best interests at heart.
Yeah, there was a moment in perceiving not like this, where I felt for a minute like a small child with something they shouldn't have, and I really didn't want it because it was really painful to hold on to it, but I couldn't get rid of it. So yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Just focus on your mind training. You know, when you find yourself in a place where things are really hectic or whatever, I've always had a fallback on lesson 10, right? My thoughts do not mean anything. Lesson 10 has always got me out of a dark hole. I just sit there and I do it with full integrity. I mean, other guys have other lessons, and when you talk to other course students or whatever, they'll be like, oh man, I love lesson 32, or I love lesson 14, or whatever, you know, because they've had a personal association with it in a moment where it's made complete sense to them and been very helpful. You know, for me, it was lesson 10, lesson 1, lesson 4, all those sorts of early ones. But focus on your mind training. Right. And now that your mind has been opened even further by that trip you had, by that experience of hallucinogenic experience, you know what the wild, limitless imagination of your subconscious can harbor. Right. You know what's in there. It's crazy, crazy shit. Right. But it's only crazy, crazy shit because that's the meaning I've given it. I call it crazy. I call it upsetting. I call it whatever it is. I can let go of that now. I don't have to call it anything. And it only shows up because I keep engaging with it. Right? Ego loves an audience, loves an audience. If you refuse to listen to it, it'll just sort of peter away to nothing. But as soon as you engage with it, you give it strength. Right? You validate the belief in separation and you make yourself the victim to your own thinking yet again and again and again, which is why mind training has to be a conscious decision every day. It's too late for you to go back now and pretend to live your life as it was before. Right? It's impossible to do that. You'll just end up back in the psych ward. You have to keep going forwards. Right? Every day, a little bit of effort. Every day, a little bit of prayer, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of do the lesson, whatever. You know, make that part of your daily dharma. Just like get into it, and that's your practice. So stay away from mushrooms. I promise you, you don't need them.
Yeah, I got that much. I got that much.
Right.
That was probably the loudest thing I could hear when I like got any semblance of content. Don't fuck with metaphysics. I think I even said that to you when I was like a little frantic. I was like, I fucked with metaphysics.
Don't fuck with metaphysics. Exactly.
Right? I didn't fuck with the chem lab. I fucked with metaphysics.
Right. Exactly. It's funny stuff. Anna, what's going on? You're looking good. You've got a good vibe.
Yeah. You know, you've been posting a lot about your cycles and watching for your cycles, and I've been doing good with that as they come up. I've had instances where I still have reacted, but I can see it and I'm watching myself do it.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's been good.
Step back. Step back.
Yeah.
Yeah. You identify that trigger. The little trigger happens and you're like, I can see me wanting to react to this. And you're like, nah. It's the same thing with me. I don't know what else I'm going to do instead of this, but just not this.
Yeah.
And you let something else occur. Yep. Good.
So it's been good.
It is good. I can tell you've got your energy is all like, refreshed and refreshing.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
No. Good. Gemma had a big shift the other day. So, which is like, if you guys can join in tomorrow, that'd be good because I want to quiz her about it. It'll be, it's nice because you'll be able to reference things in your own process from it. You know, every time somebody has a shift, not only does it benefit the whole, but the information that you get from that shift and shared amongst others who are similarly looking towards having shifts in consciousness, it's incredibly helpful. Of course, you're going to misinterpret it. Of course, you're going to think that it's something that she's saying, but she's not actually saying that. There's going to be all of that. But it's better to be listening and getting it wrong than not listening at all. You know, at least if you're listening and there's a chance that you'll, like, it's like you just said to me, I've been reading what you've been posting about watching for your cycles, right? And you've been seeing how that occurs. But if you weren't reading, you wouldn't have even been in that frame of mind. You know, it's like those little jogs to the mind. It's like, oh yeah, watch for my cycles. Watch for what's going on for me. Be aware, be vigilant. All of that stuff. So if you guys can all tune in tomorrow, that would be cool. And hopefully she's not too confused and shattered. It sounds like she's had quite a large shift, but anyway. Tina, have you finished all the Tim Tams?
Damn near. Pert near.
Oh my God. Did I send you 1 or 2 packets?
You only sent me 2. Yeah, you didn't send me
I only sent you 2. I only sent you 2 packets.
2. You only sent me
2 packets of biscuits in a week.
In days. I mean, like almost done.
You've eaten like 24 biscuits in a few days.
Is that how many there are in there? Does it feel like that many?
I think there's 12 in each packet.
Yeah. Oh God, that happens in a night. No, yeah. I said I was going to share them, but yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, Bibiana.
No.
And the
You're going to
people
share
close to
something.
me.
I'll have to send. Annie has a link. Did you get that message? Yeah. So
I did. So yeah.
Aussie Foods or something. But,
yeah, there's a guy, she keeps telling me he's like right around the corner from me. I mean, I'm not too far from downtown LA. So yeah, I have yet to meet him. But
I've been to downtown LA.
yeah, I'm not too far from there.
I've been there. I was in a prison there for 8 hours.
Oh, no. Oh, God. It's not much
my
better.
one day in America. It was incredible.
You spent it in downtown LA jail.
Sitting in a downtown LA fucking lockup.
Well, you got the gist of it.
I know, right? I could hear gunfire and everything going on down there. It was like bang, bang. There was shots and there was sirens and there was people selling fruit on the corner and
oh, isn't that the best? That's the best. Fruits on the corner.
Bags of oranges. I could just see out
oh,
the
yeah.
little thing in the armored car. I was in the back, and it was like,
no. The ones that I showed you where the guy cuts it up for me. That's the best.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's right here. I actually have it right here.
Oh, you have one?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. It's the end of the season, so anyway. Yeah.
So what's going on anyway?
Thank you for the I got lots of stories, and I'm just like, I heard what you said, so I don't know. Yeah, just
all right, good. We need to go no further.
There we go.
Bibiana, you're in a different kind of place. Where are you, in the kitchen or something?
Yeah, we have 1-bedroom apartment, so that's the space what it is.
Lovely.
Lovely. That's for the ego, from 4-bedroom house to 1-bedroom apartments.
And you know what? It's so easy to clean. You just divest yourself of stuff.
I'm still have things to let go of. I do see that, and it's a good thing to see. In the ego world, there's only insanity. I'm reminded over and over. It's insane, and everything what comes out of it is insane, and there's no need to understand it.
Yep.
And this is how that experience feels like, you know.
Good.
When I forget, and gently, I want to remind myself it's part of my practice. This is how it looked like. And what you said, you know, my thoughts are meaningless, but all thought, all creation lies. That's my sentence, what I tell myself. Because I still wake up in the morning with insanity, what produces terror or resentment or whatever flavor of the day is. But it's the first thing right away I feel attacked. And I tell myself, no, there's no outside force what attacking me. It's purification of that mind, be able to watch insanity of my own creation. That's all. So yes, these are my thoughts. These are my thoughts, what are circling in the ego mindset. And whatever it produces, it's not, you know, preference is the same voice. Ego will say, oh, but I don't like it. But it comes from that. And yeah, all creation lies in the thoughts, I think, with God. I have not created myself, and God does not create something. The cause of everything is of God. And everything else that comes with my mind and my will is just madness. That's
right.
all.
But just remember, it's you that calls it madness.
I forget. Again, when I forget, like in the morning, I did have a flare up, whatever. I forgot. I'm the dreamer of the dream. I'm creating it. I'm not the figure of the dream. So it's not a mom who is resentful with responsibility of a mother and being the only person and everything waits for me and all this story. I still forget, and suddenly I am living that experience. And it's for me, once again, to remember, you know, do I really want it? Do I want this to repeat and repeat and repeat?
Right. But just remember, it's you that calls it madness.
Yeah, I do.
Right.
It's in
without that you call it madness, it's nothing at all. It's just a backdrop. It's just a stage setting for an experience that we call life.
Yes.
Right? Jesus says in the text, the opposite of life is not death, it's another form of life. Right? when you can accept that and see that and realize that I'm in another form of life or experiencing myself in another form of life, the definition of it as being insane or crazy just sort of falls away.
Yeah, not as a judgment. Yeah, exactly.
That's right. It's like, oh, I get it. I'm in another form of life. I'm in another experience of myself that is it's not my highest experience, but it's still an experience of myself.
Yes.
Right? Now, the purpose of the is
the
to
creative
deny
force
myself
within
my
me.
truth. Right.
Yeah. The mind never sleeps. It always creates. And it just,
that's right.
Who do I devote it to? But again, the truth is always true, you know, so it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right.
And it's always about me. It's always about me. I'm the author of that experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So any kind of story, what is this about, can stop there because it's about me and it's for me.
Right.
And that's what even forgetting is about, remembering consistently. Somewhere in the course it says remembering consistently, and it speaks to my heart.
Now, what is it about?
Truth. Recognizing truth.
Exactly.
Which and is take ownership that I'm responsible for how I see things and which mindset am I using.
That's a process. Taking ownership is the process. Right? The purpose for which the process is directing you towards is to discover the truth of yourself, which is possible even in this world, not as the experience, but as the experiencer.
Yeah.
Right? In the old traditions, in the old Eastern traditions, they have a belief that, oh, you can't experience God because it's outside of the time and space parameters, blah, blah, blah. And there's nobody on earth that can experience God. That's not true, because the mind in denial is still part of God mind. Right? Yeah. So exactly. when I walk the world as, let's say, a free mind, right? Completely aware that I'm dreaming and responsible for my thinking and everything else, I then have a purpose. The first stage of that is to liberate my mind from the belief in imprisonment, in victimhood and all of that sort of stuff. The second stage is to learn to use my freedom for what it's for. Right? Which is why there are two parts to the workbook. The first one is to help me liberate my mind from my old way of thinking. And the second one is to bring about a shift in consciousness so profound that it will take me beyond my ideas of myself here and allow me to experience the truth. Okay? But in the transition between the one to the next, I've got to be willing to let go of the one. So there's a point where you hear yourself teach this again and again and again. I'm responsible, blah, 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 all of that stuff that you just told me, right? Now, let's get past that. Let's get past that. We already know you're responsible. We already know it's a dream. We've already established that as a baseline. Okay? Now, take another step. Now you're entitled to know the truth. If this is not real, show me reality, Father. Okay? There's a transition where you go from denial to acceptance. And then from that place of acceptance, something else can occur.
The only thing on practical level for myself as experience, the word what comes up, there are no differences. It's almost acknowledging no differences. There are no differences.
All right, forget about that. That's part of the old training. That's part of the first part of the work. Okay? Forget about that. Stand on the edge of everything you think you know now. Even the mind training. Get right to the very, very edge of it, where your consciousness, you can't even think about anything that I'm saying, anything you can think of, anything in the course, nothing. Get to that point and stand there for a minute. Be still in that place, and I'll join you there. You've got the first part of the workbook down pat. I can see it when you talk to me about stuff. I can tell you know what you're talking about in your own mind. I can tell you know how it works, how you apply it, how everything goes on. You've mastered that. It's fine. Right? Now go further. But to go further, you've like a ladder. You're on one rung here. Now put your foot on the next one. Right? Don't decide how that ought to look, and the universe will orchestrate it so that you can have that experience. But you've got to ask for it. This is a place that's out of your hands now.
Yeah. Gotta
Okay.
ask for it. That's the one.
You've got to ask. Ask for an experience. You're already at a place. It's like people at an airport, right? You've already done all the prep. You're at the airport. You got your bags packed and everything. You're ready to go. Now it's time to go. You're close, Bibiana. You probably don't even realize it, but you're close to something occurring in your consciousness, and the only thing that's preventing that from happening is you hanging on to the mind training. It's like Jesus says, now forget this course. There's no more lessons. You don't need them. That's true in you. You've got a good grasp of this. You already know it's like it's happening.
It's reading these 50 lessons over and over. It's amazing. It's
right,
beautiful.
Exactly.
It's beautiful. Exactly. I have moments at work. I work with an 11-month-old baby with his, yes, eyes of wonder and awe. And I'm reminded of it. And then I have the little book in front of me and just one sentence. I judge everything, and this is only what I see. I judge everything when I look upon, and this is what I see.
Ready? Let's do it again. Ready? Now let go of that. Now let go of that. Stay there. Stay in that place. Beyond the mind training is something else. There's something else. The mind training is the functional application of principles in your mind to help you come to an experience of something else. You're at the place where that something else is waiting to occur. I can tell. I can sense it in you. I just know it about your being. It's like there's somebody standing behind you, and you're not. I can tell, but you're not aware of it. It's like there's a thing that's about to unravel, about to happen, about to occur in your consciousness that has nothing to do with the mind training, but the mind training has brought you to the point where you can be ready for it to happen. Try to hear that. Try to breathe it in. There's another step. There's the next thing waiting to occur in you.
When you said the word right away, next thing.
Right.
Prior to that, it was no next.
Right.
That's exactly what it was when the ease and peaceful content of no next.
Forget about that. Let that go too. Stop trying to work out what you think it might be and let it happen. All those thoughts in your head, the very next thing you want to say is going to stop you from entering into the experience. There's a deep, abiding silence. And beyond that silence, reality. It's like you can end up being like somebody who's got their boarding pass to get on the airplane, and they're wandering around the terminal telling people, I'm going on an airplane, I'm going on an airplane, and they're waving their boarding pass, but they don't actually get on the airplane. Right? The airplane's infinitely patient. It's going to wait for you. I'm telling you, Bibiana, get on the airplane. You've got your boarding pass. Something's happening in your mind. Something's there, and it's like there's a subtle. Jesus talks about it in the Course. He says, "I'm aware of the revelation readiness of every brother everywhere." Right? I think pretty much that's exactly how he puts it. I'm aware of the revelation readiness of every brother everywhere. It's like similarly, and this is actually another thing we were talking about today. Lloyd and Stephanie and I, we were talking about when a mind is adept at meditation and when it's close to the void, when a mind like my mind and Lloyd and Stephanie, when you've already been through the void, when you've been into the dark place and out the other side into the light, you become automatically aware of everybody who's got a boarding pass. It's kind of a thing, you know, you can just sense it. And I said something to Lloyd. I said, we were talking about this Zoom meeting we're going to do next Sunday, how it's going to be about facing the void and facing that emptiness, that intense fear of terror within inside. And he said, man, I'm aware of it in other people. And I said, I'm aware of it in other people as well. I said, I've seen so many guys that do meditation or whatever, and they get right up to this close little place in their mind where their concepts are they're at the edge, they're at the end. They've reached the end of the road with their concepts and their mind training and everything. And it's like, all they got to do is take one more step. And he's like, yeah, I know. Right? He said to me, I know. How do you get people to take one more step? And I said, I have no clue, but I can tell them that they're at the end of the road. And it's like, for you, I know you're at the end of the road. There's something else that's waiting to occur in your mind, and you're going to have to talk to Jesus directly about it, because that's the only way I know that this occurs. Show me what's next. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that you can make it up how beautiful it might be and whatever. Forget about all that.
Another concept.
Yeah, let go of the concepts. Just talk to Jesus. Jesus, I want to have this experience, and whatever Dave's telling me about, I want it. Yeah. That's if you do want it. I mean, maybe you might be a bit fearful of it, but, you know. There's a thing. It's like it's a true thing. It's like a part, you know, Jesus, in the Course, he says, your job as a brother or whatever is fulfilled every time you lead a brother to the place where the journey ends. Right? Now, the journey has ended in you. All those mind training principles are so active in your mind, it's impossible that they cannot not be active. They're doing what they're meant to do automatically, and you're seeing it and you're collaborating with it, and everything's occurring as it's meant to occur. Right? Keep going. Trust that your effort with the workbook lessons, trust that your effort in reading those books has done what it needs to do in you to prepare you for what's about to happen next. Okay? If that looks fearful for a second, so be it. Let it be fearful. Okay? A lot of people cling to the Course like it's a lifeline. Don't fall into that trap. Be willing to let it go for a second. Be willing to let it go for whatever that looks like. Be willing to step into the unknown, but do it with Jesus.
I recognize that really speaks to me what you said. Holding to the Course and giving it a function of a lifeline. And it's always, everything is done with Jesus. The truth is done with Jesus. That's all. Right.
That's it. So ask, like ask and you shall receive. Ask.
Yes.
It's time for you. I mean, anybody, really, anyone. You know, Tina, Megan, Anna. There's no right time or wrong time to ask Jesus to show you what the truth of yourself. But it's like no experience will be given to you if it's deemed that it might be harmful to your psyche, if it might be too much or too overwhelming for your state of mind at this moment. You know, but you just have to kind of trust him with that. He's in charge of the atonement. The most I can do as a brother, let's say, or as we can do for each other, is to walk each other home to the point where our relationships are so unified in that Christ consciousness that there's no point for mind training after that. What are we going to talk about? You know, we're both here on the road together. We both know we're the Christ. We both know it's a dream. We're practicing our forgiveness. What else are we going to do? You know, there's nothing else, right? There's nothing else. As far as that goes, there's nothing else. Now, go beyond that. Go beyond the place where there's nothing else. It's like, all right, I need help to do that because I don't know how to get there. It's like all of a sudden you reach the edge of the map and you say, oh, this is the edge of the map. I can't go any further. You know, like this is it. I've gone to the edge. If I go this way, I'm still going to get to the edge. Right? Now, go beyond that. Go to the place in your own mind where there's no map. But you can't do that without Jesus. It'll fuck you up if you try to do it without Jesus. And I met a guy once, I'll tell you this story. I was in Brisbane and I'd been there several times handing out books and meeting with people and doing stuff years ago. And I met this guy about 20 minutes, 30 minutes out of town. His wife rang me and or got a hold, I can't remember how she got a hold of me actually. But anyway, his wife got a hold of me and said, can you come and visit my husband? He'd been practicing this kind of meditation that he taught himself, and he had a full out-of-body experience. But he'd had no, in my awareness of what she was saying, it sounded like he'd had no mind training to help him ground the experience and to help him make that experience useful to himself. Right? And when I went to visit him, he'd been something like 6 months or 4 months or whatever. He hadn't slept a wink. He couldn't sleep. He'd been outside of his body. His mind didn't know how to deal with it. And he had these two polarities going on. One was the world where there's the good and bad. And the other one was this kind of version of reality where he saw everything as just golden light and himself as that. And the two things were like flying around in his brain as versions of reality, and he couldn't bridge the gap. Right? When I gave him a copy of the course and I told him how to use, like his eyes, the bags under his eyes were bright red, like red car, like a paint, you know, like it was ridiculous. It was like blood red under his eyes, and the pupils of his everything, you could tell the guy had not slept. And I've heard stories of guys that reach enlightenment, like in India or whatever, and they don't sleep and all that sort of thing. But for him, he had no reference for it. So to him, it was an antagonistic situation to be in, right? Whereas in India, they're kind of revered as holy men and they have these things that goes on and people go on pilgrimages to meet them and things like that, sadhus. But he started working with the course. And the last time I had spoke to his wife about him, I think it was only 3 months prior that he'd actually started to get a little bit of sleep. He was doing the lessons and things like that. But there's two components to mind training, or there's two components to salvation. One is the mind training, which is why we have the course. The other one is the experience, right? Jesus says in the course, a universal experience is not only possible, but it's essential. It's essential, right? Now, the mind training is up to you. The mind training is what you choose to embark upon and take on board and do and practice and apply and all of that. The experience, which is beyond mind training, is not up to you. That's up to Jesus. But there's a point in your own mind where you realize that, what am I doing here? I've done all my mind training. I see that it works. I'm applying it and I can continue to apply it. I don't need any more mind training. I need an experience now to show me what the hell I'm doing all this mind training for. Right? He says in the course, revelation shows you the truth, but the means are needed to reach it. Right? So for me, I had my awakening first and then got the course. So I'd already seen the truth. I already had an experience of being back in eternity. Right? And then I was presented by Greta, gave me a copy of the course, and she said, you need to read this book or you're going to go crazy. You know, you need to do these lessons and ground that experience you've had and integrate that experience. Otherwise, I would have been like that other guy. I wouldn't have slept and I was just a laughing maniac. It's true. I couldn't stop laughing for 4-6 months, every day, all day, laughing. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't have conversations. I couldn't do anything. I was completely useless to anyone. I couldn't have sat here and done this Zoom meeting with you guys, but I had to ground that experience because my ego had taken it. And it was like I supercharged my ego with it. I gave it more light instead of withdrawing the light from it. So, but luckily I had lots of brothers around me who were helping me, and God bless them all, because I was such a slow learner. Probably still am. So there's the mind training, and then there's the experience, the purification and the experience. Miracles are your right. Purification is necessary first. Okay. It doesn't matter that your purification isn't complete. The miracle isn't waiting on it for it to be complete. It only matters that it's at a point of no return, where you can't go back, where you can't forget. Bibiana, you're already at that point. You've passed the point of no return. You just haven't realized it yet. You can safely ask for experiences and they'll get integrated automatically. But you still have to ask. Okay. Hands together, wear out the carpet with your knees. I guarantee you.
There's no carpet.
Right, whatever. The floorboards.
Yeah, thank you. No joke about something. What is to be honored.
One of the things I love, I was listening to Adyashanti or Ad Shanti. I don't know how to say his name. It's like Nick Nack Than. I never know how to say his name either. Thick Nack Than. Like I just go call him Nick Nack. But all these Buddhist names, like how do you pronounce them? So, but I really like the little thing. I posted it up as well. I've watched about 4 or 5 of his clips now, and I never had any resistance to listening to him, but because he's like just another guy, just another awakened mind, just another teacher. It's like, oh God, how many teachers do you really want to listen to? If you get on YouTube and you type in awakened teacher or something, there's so many people that you could just spend a lifetime listening to. But I thought I'll give it a listen because he was talking about Osho, and I've never had a great affinity with Osho. Some of his stuff has been okay. And then other stuff, I think, man, if you had a copy of the course, it would just really help you to ground whatever's going on for you, like there's this whole left of field kind of thing where the non-temporal purpose of the mind training and everything and purification becomes kind of muddled into the temporal association of authority versus the awakening mind, which is not a true struggle at all, not a true thing at all. It's just another perspective to look at the same old situation. But he makes it into something because it's a powerful stimulant to people who feel put down by authority, or it's a powerful initiative to people that feel like they've got no voice in the world. So he gets a lot of followers and builds up that kind of image. And he had thousands and thousands, like probably millions worldwide of sannyasins or whatever, but it kind of missed the point for me of a whole lot of stuff. So when I was listening to Adyashanti and him talking about Osho, he was saying the same thing. It was like he referred to it about a diamond, and you have all these different facets, and it's easy to get stuck in transformation, focusing on one facet, looking into the whole diamond and seeing the whole thing and thinking you're seeing the whole thing. But you have to look at all the facets. So awakening takes you around the whole, like you heal one relationship, another relationship, another relationship. And it kind of lends a sense of maturity or a sense of development to all the different aspects of the ego association within your own mind and brings them all into an alignment. Because it's very simple to think that because you've had an experience that the work is finished, the work is done. Like when in truth, when you have an experience, a true experience, the work just begins. All of the mind training of the course is preparing you for an experience. Once you have the experience, then the shit really hits the fan, right? But you have to be aware of it and see yourself in each. And there was a beautiful movie, I think it was called The 13th Floor or something like that, where the guy would go into different situations and his friend would try to contact him through this illusion and go, it's just a dream, it's not real. And they were looking for something, and he went into this room and it was his dad who'd passed in the room, and he was saying it's not really there, it's not really your dad, don't fall for it. And he got stuck for a period of time in that room talking to his dad, you know. But his job was to go through all these rooms, recognize the unreality of everything, and get to the final room where he could get out at the other end. I can't quite remember the movie. I don't think
it was the guy that played in the Passion of Christ. I know what movie you're talking about. That was the actor. Of course I did. Yeah.
Good.
And I know why I was watching.
What was that movie called? It was amazing.
I found out. I saw it a long time ago. I'll find it real quick.
I saw it a long time ago. And when I saw it, I thought, oh my God, this is transformation. This is exactly what goes on. You go into of memories and thoughts and ideas about things, and you become attached in there and you can't break free. But your job is to stay in the hallway and get to the end of the hallway, you know, rather than getting stuck in the individual rooms. But he was talking about Osho like that, how Osho obviously hadn't been through all the different facets, and he was still kind of involved heavily with one thing. And of course, he would have had more time to get through other facets, except for his cook poisoned him or something, I think was the...
Yeah, I dropped the link for that Adya Shanti.
Right, yeah.
I dropped it in there. Yeah, it's in there.
Really cool. It's really cool. So the idea I'm trying to present then with this one and Bibiana, the same thing is you'll get to a point where you realize not a complicity, a maturity perhaps, or a completeness with a specific perspective or understanding of your transformative journey, right? And then it's time to move on. Right, then it's time to go on to another thing. What's next, Jesus? What's next? Show me what's next. Right, same thing, Anna. Right, what's next? Just because you find this kind of ease, you start to understand things. It's like, oh, I'm getting it. You know, like in sense, there's nothing to get, but you start to realize that forgiveness is something that you can see how it works in your own mind now. Right, now on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. Keep going. Right, it's like it's a whole diamond, the whole facet. It's like that story of the three guys with the elephant. You know, I think he even mentions that. And one guy has the tail, and he says the elephant is long and skinny and it's fluffy at the end, and the other guy has the trunk, and he goes, no, it's thick and it's wrinkly and whatever, and the other one has the leg, and he's going, it's like a solid tree. They're all talking about the same thing from a different perspective, but you need all those things to make up the picture of the whole thing. Right? You need all those perspectives. You can't define the elephant or say what the elephant is just by hanging onto its tail. Same thing with transformation. You go through one relationship purification. You go through the particulars of healing one relationship or one scenario you're in a particular relationship, and you get the result of that healing, which is the peace and the love and the tenderness and everything that comes through doing the healing. Now, on to the next. Okay? It's easy to get caught up trying to replicate what you think that healing was and how it occurred in everything, right? It's not like that, okay? Otherwise, you'll just turn it into a religious practice in your own mind rather than a miraculous practice, okay? So remember, there's the mind training and then there's the experience. You do the mind training to prepare yourself for the experience. You're learning to become revelation ready. You're learning to be, through miracle mindedness, to become revelation ready. Right? Which is why it's important to get out of your comfort zones. If you see a comfort zone, if you have a comfort zone, get out of it. You're talking about salvation here. Like, step outside of the box for a second so you can see where you're really at. We used to take, or I did anyway, I used to take journeys away from the healing center. I'd go for 3 or 4 or 5 days at a time, go visit my parents or go back and do something else other than that. And I'd see how much I'd changed. I'd have a clear reference. I was outside of all my other reflections. I couldn't control anything. There was no familiarity. And I allowed myself, and this is exactly what Gemma's going to talk about. Hopefully she's there tomorrow. She told me that she did what I told her. I don't remember telling her this, but she did what I told her, and she got out of her comfort zone. She stepped out of it, and a huge, massive shift occurred in her consciousness, right? You have to do that. You've got to get outside of your comfort zone. You've got to make those decisions and those purposeful and deliberate decisions to step out of what it is that you're familiar with and what you think you know, including the mentality of the Course. When Jesus says, forget this Course and come with holy empty hands unto God, he means it. Forget the Course. Right? Now, for someone who's heavily invested in practicing the Course and still seeing how that could be potentially useful in their lives, they're not going to want to forget it just yet. They're going to be like, oh, I don't know. I still have fear. I'm still practicing. It's still useful to me, whatever. Right? But there's a leap of faith in everything. Forget the Course. Come with holy empty hands unto God. Bibiana, that's where you're at. You may not recognize it particularly yet, but that's where you're at. I can guarantee you are. Right? Doesn't mean that you're not still going to have things that'll require forgiveness. It doesn't mean that there's still not going to be other relationships on earth that you're going to have to look at through the eyes of Christ and all that sort of thing. But it means that there's a point in you now that something else can occur and you're not going to waste it. Right? It's like you would make a good guardian of the light. Put it that way. You're a worthy, what do they call that? A worthy gatekeeper or something like that. So anyway, talk to Jesus about that one. There's a thing that happens in this, and you'll find it for yourselves too. So like, you'll just become automatically, when you start to tune into the flow of the universe, when you start to tune into frequency rather than personality. Okay. When
That's
you start
the name of the movie.
frequency.
Frequency.
Oh, that's really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Of course it is. All right. So, but when you start to tune into a person's frequency rather than their personality, right, you'll start to get a sense of not only where you're at in your relationship with that person, but where that person is at in their relationship with the universe, because one is not separate from the other. Right? Now, you can't see your own reflection except in your brother. It's impossible. You need a mirror to see your reflection. Right? Which is why getting out of your comfort zone, meeting people that are out of your normal sphere, doing things like that, it's like if you look at it this way, a comfort zone is a defense. A comfort zone is a place where I can control things, right? Jesus is saying, let me control things. Give up the world and follow me. Your comfort zone won't serve you. You might find for a minute that you want to take your rest there. You might find for a minute that you need a comfort zone. That's fine. But don't fall into the trap of becoming isolated within it, right? Remember, you've got work to do. Step out of the comfort zone and the universe will present you with opportunities to go deeper and further into the psyche of your own thinking, and you'll meet better reflections, or more confronting reflections perhaps, of where you're actually at in your awakening, in your process. Right? Either way, it's going to be helpful, either way. Right? So I have an experience. I was in Tilba once, I think it's in South Australia, little town called Tilba, and we were doing a workshop there, 3 or 4 day workshop. And I was in the main part of the town. It's a tiny little town. There's about 300 residents. It's in the country, but all of the residents are either farmers or hippies or people that are spiritually sort of like looking for, it's one of those sort of hubs, you know. And there's a little Buddhist center near there, or there used to be, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a little Buddhist center there. And I was in town one day at a store which was run by a couple of the nuns from the Buddhist place. And they were selling little accoutrements, you know, bells and those little dharma things and flags and whatever. And I was talking to the lady behind the counter and telling her what we're doing and workshop, and trying to promote it a bit and just get the word out amongst the town, because like we've driven 2,000 kilometers to get there, so may as well try and tell people. Anyway, I can't remember what I said, right? I can't remember how I expressed myself to her, but she was obviously fairly accomplished as a nun. And she said to me, you know what? I really hate it when I hear people express separation that way. And it hit me, like, it's like, holy crap. I turn up in this town with the other guys, assuming that people need to hear what I have to say, when in fact it's only me needing to hear what I have to say. And like, obviously we did the workshop and everything anyway, but she actually came along to the workshop, and she actually had a whole moment of connecting, and we had this beautiful moment together. But had I not stepped outside of my comfort zone and allowed myself to have a conversation with that person about what was going on, what I thought, and I had no control of the conversation. It just went deeper and deeper and deeper into this kind of thing that I thought was going rather swimmingly. You know, everything was fine. And then the next thing, she was like slapping my cheek with it back. And I'm like, whoa. And she was right, you know, but I wouldn't have seen that unless she'd have actually, you know, it was beautiful. And I had a little moment of shift. And then the very next night after that, this is the night before we did our workshop, because of that moment, because of that catalyst, I had a moment like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane where I couldn't keep going. I realized the falsity in everything I was doing. It's like, I can't do this workshop. I can't do this teaching. And I found myself with Sol and Shanti in a place just across the road from where the little Buddhist shop was. They have an art gallery there. And I was downstairs. They have a kind of funny upstairs, downstairs. The shop's on the road, and their house is like in the basement underneath on the side of a hill. And I was in tears. I was having a total crisis of faith. I was having a meltdown. The whole thing happened. And I realized that this idea that I'd had of myself as a spiritual teacher and how I think that ought to look, it was falling apart at the seams, you know. And even though at the time I didn't realize what a beautiful thing that was, at the time I seemed to be experiencing incredible anxiety around it. And I thought, I can't do this workshop. I can't go on. You know? But anyway, moments passes, and Shanti sort of put her arm around me and she goes, you'll be right, Dave, you can do this. And, you know, just let it happen how it's meant to happen. Something like that, she said to me, you know, and I realized, yep, all right, I'll just let it happen how it's meant to happen. And I was trying to keep my finger on my own nose. Like I was really, really, really trying to focus that what I'm teaching, I need to hear. And the whole thing that I was teaching was that all temporal dissociation is not true, right? Which is what we're only ever teaching. And when the nun walked in, when the Buddhist nun walked in, and like we have an open door thing, when she walked in and I saw her, I was grateful for her being there, but I was also in my heart terrified that I might make the same mistake about things that I utter again and represent separation somehow. You know, it was like this whole fish out of water moment. It was incredible. And I had this shift. something happened in my consciousness because I had no choice but to ask Jesus for help with it. I had no choice but to ask the Holy Spirit, help me do this workshop. Help me know what words to say. Help me with everything here. I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm learning to become dependent on God, not dependent on my mastery of the course. Okay, there's a difference.
Wow.
Mastery of the course brings you to a certain point of recognition, of realization. That's it. Tina, same thing. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I was gonna say something.
No, don't say nothing. Ready? Get out of your comfort zone.
Oh, okay, Dave. Okay.
Just say yes.
Okay.
Right, good. Same thing. Megan, same thing. Anna, same thing. Dave, same thing. Good. All right, well, that's about it, I think. Anything else? No. Good chat. Megan? Ready? Yeah. Feel it. Just feel. Good. See you tomorrow. Should be a fun meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.